What's good, everybody? This episode of the podcast is sponsored by DistroKid. They are the go-to for digital music distribution and the easiest way for musicians to get their music onto Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, TikTok, YouTube, and more. They offer unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of their earnings, getting your music onto platforms and into stores 10 to 20 times faster than any other distributor. They help with cover song clearance, automatic splits, and they offer all kinds of tools and templates to help you get the most visibility for your releases. I dig this company and appreciate their business model that offers more features and tools than any other distributor while doing it at the most affordable price for solo artists, bands, DJs, studio artists, and any other creators that are making music or producing music in their home, and they offer label services as well. They've got 3 different tiers that they offer to creators that start as low as $22.99 a year. That's just $1.92 a month. And even their top tier is only $7.50 per month. And the best part about DistroKid sponsoring the podcast is they are offering Dan Cable Presents listeners 30% off their first year of service with DistroKid, making their affordable prices even cheaper for you. I will put that discount link in the episode notes. It will also be in my Instagram bio. Big shout out to DistroKid for sponsoring this podcast for more than 3 years now. Much appreciated. Now let's get into the episode.
Look down at the
What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Dan Cable Presents podcast. Thank you for tuning into the program once again. If this is your first time listening, thanks for checking out the show. You can find fresh episodes coming at you every Tuesday. And if you want to help support this thing in a free way, you can do so by clicking subscribe on iTunes, clicking write a review, giving the podcast 5 stars, and that will help propel this thing into the tops of those iTunes charts, giving it more visibility on the national and international levels, helping strangers find the podcast, and just a great way to contribute to the growth and sustainability of this thing. Appreciate the hell out of all the folks that have already taken the time to do so. If you're not listening on Apple, just hit like, follow, subscribe wherever you are listening from. Tell a friend about the podcast. If you're listening on Spotify, give it a 5-star rating there. If you're watching on YouTube, you can hit subscribe there, and you can check out the monthly playlist that I've been dropping every first of the month. Those are available on Spotify. Links for those will be in the episode notes. Stoked to get into episode 427 with Ledges AKA Zach Hurd, who just put out a brand new record called Rivers that is really great. So many killer jams on it. This was Zach's second time doing the podcast. He came through Portland a couple years ago, and we linked up for a podcast, and he was here just a week or so ago playing the Wonder Ballroom, and he got into town early enough to stop by the studio, and we got to chat for a while about the new record, and just appreciate him making the time to do so, and super appreciate his vulnerability on the mic, talking about where this new record came from emotionally. It definitely came from a heavy place, and a lot of it was informed by the death of family members. So I appreciate him diving into those things with me, and just really appreciated this chat. If you dig the music featured in this episode, I can't encourage you enough to go check out this entire Rivers record and grab a copy on vinyl if you're a vinyl record person, and stay tuned for Ledges coming to a city near you in the future on tour. And before we get into the episode, I just want to give people a heads up on what is to come podcast schedule release-wise for the next few months for you regular listeners. And first off, just a big thank you to you regular listeners. I really appreciate you, and I love that there are people out there that are listening to this thing every week when it comes out. But these next few months And starting at the end of this week, I'm going to be on tour for most of the fall with a couple different artists. And I am very grateful for these opportunities and stoked to continue to get to travel around the country in this way. However, I've never gone out on the road and just gotten to focus on tour managing. It's always been juggling the podcast while out there. And because of the length of time that I'm going to be gone this fall, I want to give myself a little bit of a break, a little bit of a breather, and not feel that pressure like something needs to come out every week while I'm gone. So I'm not just going to put the thing on pause, but I am going to cut back to doing them every other week for the months of September, October, and November. So episode 428 will come out on September 17th. I am bringing my mic and my recorder out on the road. So who knows? Maybe I just won't be able to stay away from releasing something on the weekly in some capacity, whether it's like a little tour diary or a playlist episode. I've also got some live sessions that have been recorded in some different spaces that I haven't found a way to release yet. So maybe I'll put those out. But I just wanted to give people a heads up that listen to this thing weekly. Again, I really appreciate you, and I'm hoping this gives me a little bit of an opportunity to recharge. I have dropped an episode, every week for over 8 years now, since July of 2016. So I think it's good to step back in some capacity, or be able to feel like it's okay to do so, like the wheels aren't going to fall off, or I'm going to lose anybody that's been following this thing for years or even months, just because I'm stepping back to every other week for a few months. And I just feel like this will be the best thing for the podcast, and just for me mentally while I'm out on the road for a few months. So that is what is happening. And also, if you watch the podcast on YouTube, or you are a subscriber to the Dan Cable Presents YouTube channel, it will soon change to Primetime Cable, which I've had in the works for a while. There's a new logo that I'm excited about, that my buddy Chris Frank, who made the current Dan Cable Presents logo and also made my Tuna Boy logo, he's cooking up something for Primetime Cable. So I'm stoked to make that shift. I just think that also feels good as I start to explore releasing other content aside from just podcast episodes in the video form, whether it's going to be in studio live music performances, or these official Tuna Boy episodes that are coming soon. I just wanted everything to be able to be housed in the same area, and this is Primetime Cable Studio, and Primetime Cable just feels right. So you're going to see that change as well if you are a YouTube subscriber. And that Tuna Boy, if you follow the Tuna Boy stuff, the official Tuna Boy episode, I think will be out at the end of September or early October. So stay tuned for that if you are a fan of that series. And that's all the things. With all that, we're going to get in to episode 427 with Bay Ledges. And to kick off the episode, we are going to play one of my favorite tracks from that new Rivers record. This one is called Setting Free. Now let's do the damn thing. All right, man. Well, I'm stoked to have you here, Zach. I was, a fan of your music last time we talked, but man, I just feel like this Rivers record that you just put out is so next level, dude. And just Yeah, it seems like it just shows so much growth in your production and your songwriting from that initial record that you put out.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure it feel good to
Yeah.
finally have it out in the world. I know it's been out in like kind of different pieces of it have been
Yeah,
out for a little while. But
right. Yeah, we there's kind of like single rollout, all that stuff. But yeah, no, it does feel like kind of an evolution of I feel like I can see the growth of the production, and yeah, that feels good for sure.
Yeah, do you feel like you're very far away from the dude who was like taking Ableton classes from somebody?
Oh my
and
God,
whatnot?
yeah. I was just talking to someone about that the other day. I forget who, but yeah, just remembering like using Ableton for the first time, and yeah, and just like my sense with even just like very basic production stuff, like with mixing, like EQ stuff. I was listening to some of the old songs the other day, and just kind of some harsh frequencies and stuff, but it is what it is.
Yeah, do you think that's all just repetition, or like what do you think has allowed you maybe to have a better ear and sensibility for not just writing the music, but being this producer and mixing engineer of sorts?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it is just a lot of listening, and like I think there are times where you feel like what you want it to sound like.
Yeah.
And then you can either figure that out, or you figure out something close to it, and then there are other times where I feel like you thought you knew what you wanted it to sound like, or you thought you knew where it was sonically, and you look back and you're like, oh yeah, I was not close to that. But yeah, I just think time and repetition, and you just kind of, your ears just get better. I think.
So when you maybe like hear an idea in your head, do you feel like you're at the point where you can really like remove that from your head and put it into the speakers?
Sometimes, but no, I mean, I still feel like I'm learning a ton, all the time. I still get inspired by listening to other people, like sounds other people are making, and just like have no idea how they're making those sounds. I still feel like I'm at a place where I can't fully, sometimes I can, but yeah, not always.
Yeah. Are you like actively learning in a way where you're like seeking things out on YouTube, or just picking people's brains?
Yeah, I love that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I still go on YouTube and just try to learn like production tips and mixing stuff, and I love that stuff. I feel like even if I wasn't doing this as a job, I would probably still be doing that. Yeah.
Do you feel like your writing approach has like changed much from over the last few years, like when you think about this record in comparison to maybe the previous? Or
I mean, definitely it's changed a lot from like when I first started, like years before I started Bay Ledges. Like it was kind of always on guitar, just always that was always the starting point of every song. And now I think it's there's been a lot more songs where I'm sort of like building, like producing the track and then figuring out what the song is after I've sort of like constructed the like sonic landscape of the song. And that feels very new. So yeah, it kind of feels all over the place now, as opposed to like just leaning on guitar as like this thing. I mean, I still look at guitar as probably the instrument I know the best. But yeah, it's a little more varied for sure.
Yeah, would you say it's like maybe not as much as always your go-to kind of like foundational writing tool at this point? Like maybe you're writing to like a a drum loop or like a synth line or something like that.
Yeah, totally. Like using the bass and like finding a beat I like and then playing bass instead, and yeah, figuring out things that way. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you're still pretty much like making all this music just in your home.
Yeah.
What do you like about the comforts of that?
I mean, I love the idea of like making music and like and people hearing what you're making, like just from home, like as opposed to like some big production studio and all these hands involved. I like the feeling of like this is coming directly from me.
Yeah.
And I think from the beginning I liked the idea of it's like I'm learning this thing and you as a listener are sort of like witnessing this evolution as opposed to having a ton of people involved. And yeah, I don't know, it's kind of like with visual art, looking at, you know, a piece an artist has made, and it's like, yeah, they did that with their hand. And so I feel like that's always been appealing to me. And I guess making music at home, I mean, I think it's just out of necessity too, you know, just like it's cheaper to do it that way, and easier. And but yeah, I think it, like, for me in my mind, it keeps it kind of feeling homegrown, I guess, in a certain sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there something about just maybe the comfort of your own space as well, and like kind of maybe feeling like you're not, you know, having to go through the mental gymnastics of like, oh, I have the studio for 8 hours today, I have to make something happen with this 8 hours, or it's just like bad for me money wise and just the time spent.
Oh my God, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when I lived in Brooklyn, I you know, I worked like a 9 to 5 and was, you know, making money, supporting myself that way. And, but also that I was like funding studio time with, you know, money, and that, you know, it's like so precious, you know, like just a day in the studio is so expensive, or can be. And so, yeah, I felt like a lot of times when I would go into the studio, like back then, it was like I didn't always have like a totally formulated idea of, you know, what this was going to be. Let's just bang this out. And you know, I feel like a lot of times for me, I like to be able to come back to a song like months, a year later or whatever, and chip away at it more. Yeah, not all of them kind of like just come instantly. And I also just think about them all as like a whole, as, you know, the production is part of the songwriting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I would assume that that's like another part of like why it's important for you to be connected to that part, and not necessarily just say, all right, I've got like the bones to a song, now let's take it somewhere to someone else to like help me bring it to life.
Totally. And that I think was like my biggest, one of my biggest struggles, I think, in living in LA. It was like, I think everybody's a producer now, and which is really cool. It's like, it's super empowering, and it's, you know, there are just so many tools that are readily available. But it's like, I think I just really struggled with the idea of like, I'm not like a top line guy, you know, I'm not like I'm just going to write a melody and sing a lyric. And I've never like looked at my voice as like, my voice is the best part of like what I do. I mean, it's certainly like a piece of it, but I like certain things about my voice, but there are also a lot of things I don't like about my voice. And sometimes I think just having someone else like produce the track, it would just kind of leave me feeling sort of not fully connected to what we had made.
Yeah.
And also I think I like to be able to control with my voice sort of how it's presented. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just like super particular. I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
It almost like doesn't make sense to have somebody turning knobs in the room if you know what you want that vocal to sound like
Yeah.
either, you know, and you have like enough of an understanding to accomplish what you're trying to get done.
Yeah, and I definitely, it's like I for sure see the benefit of, you know, collaboration, and that's, you know, that leads to some really amazing work. I think it's just, for me, it's just being pretty thoughtful about how those collaborations happen, and just, and how do you collaborate?
Yeah.
You know, yeah. What does it look like? And yeah.
Yeah, do you feel also like your limitations at times lead to good things?
Yeah, totally. I think having parameters on what you can and can't do can totally lead to, you know, some cool production ideas for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you might do something like in some fucked up way that somebody with like more technical knowledge
Yeah.
wouldn't approach it that
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
they don't get the same sound.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think not having all the knowledge can be really beneficial for sure.
Yeah. What about, because you are typically like making this music on your own in your home, that almost gives you like unlimited time to work on these things.
Yeah.
So will you ever give yourself like time parameters
A deadline
to try to finish something, or like
Yeah.
say to yourself, hey, I wonder what I can make in 2 hours today, just to, like as an exercise or anything like that that's been helpful to you?
Yeah, I've done that before, like you know, try to make a song a day kind of thing. And I still do that, like try to make something every day. But yeah, I mean, I think like, you know, certainly like deciding I'm gonna make an album, you know, like for this album, it's like, you know, you set a deadline, and I certainly push things back at times, but yeah, I think just after doing this too for years, I think I'm more and more getting a better sense of like, you know, if I start down a road with a song, is this going somewhere, or do I need to like pivot and just kind of start something new? And I don't always know. You know, there's definitely still songs in my hard drive that are like I've been coming back to for like years, you know, and I feel like I can crack the code,
Yeah.
and just have not been able to, but it's been, you know, it's like years. But yeah, just, I think just knowing sort of how to finish something, I think I've just sort of like developed that over time too. Like, cause you're, I mean, like everyone says, I think you can just like tweak and do all that and then, you know, you'll watch like another YouTube video and be like, God damn it. Like I could do this thing, and I already, you know, I've already finished, you know? And so, yeah, but yeah, I think it's just, yeah, it's come over time for sure.
Yeah. I mean, also it must be kind of nice maybe to revisit things with new skills that you've acquired.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you wrote this initial idea like 2 years ago and it's not really finding its legs, but then you discover this new skill, or like
Totally.
this new way to, you know, work the production, and that unlocks everything for that song.
Yeah. I mean, even with this album, it was like I had sent everything in to the label, and then for one of the songs, I was like, I don't know why, I kind of came back to it and played around with it more, and I was like, oh my God, this is like such a cool version of this song. And it's like, you know, I'm sure release it later, but yeah, just from going back with some like different ideas to the same song, it's like, yeah, you can kind of come up with some different stuff for sure. Yeah, which is super fun.
Yeah, I love I feel like with this record you really did some cool things with some of like the vocal samples that were maybe used in certain areas, that it just like give things so much character, you know, speaking
Cool.
of like going outside of your own voice.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, I've always loved like vocal manipulation, and so yeah, that was definitely a thing on the album, and using other vocals I found, and you know, sample packs and stuff, and just like chopping stuff up, and I think just to find like different vocal textures it's just fun. I don't know, there's something about the human voice that's just you can't really replicate it with like, you know, by doing the same line with like a synth or something, you know. It's there's just so much like texture there.
Yeah, and it does, like, I don't know, it feels like you can do so many like kind of fucked up things with it, like adjusting tempo and pitch to a vocal.
Totally. Oh my god, yeah. Pitch is, yeah, you can do. I feel like I've sat for, you know, hundreds of hours just like just listening to, just manipulate, you know, chopped up vocals and stuff, and yeah.
Because you are making this music in your home, and you're, you know, a lot of the music is very danceable, you know. You know, at a Bay Ledges show, I would assume there's a lot of dancing going on. I've seen some live videos. You know, people are moving. Is it hard for you to be able to feel what is going to make someone move when you're making this music alone, or can you feel that all the time?
Yeah, it's funny because like the live show to me feels so different from when I'm making the music. I feel like sometimes I'm some of the songs on the album are not like, I don't know that they're like super dancey songs, or I guess when I was making them I wasn't really thinking about dancing, but I guess I feel like the recorded stuff and the live sort of exist in two different worlds in my mind. So when I'm making it, I'm not thinking too much about like, how is this gonna like be good energy for the stage, or and maybe that would be cool to think in that way. I guess I've not been able to like be that specific with like, I'm gonna think about this and make this, but it's and I think once we sort of move to the live piece and start rehearsals and stuff, then it's like, okay, what's gonna make this song feel the most exciting, I think, just for us on stage and to play, and also just in creating an energy in the room. I think the last like few years, I think in my mind it was like, okay, how hard can I go on stage, you know, like how much can I dance and just totally look like a fool, you know. And on this tour, I think with this album, we're playing all these new songs, and I realize like there's just like a lot I'm like focusing on doing, like sort of with the guitar or some like vocal chop stuff, and so I can't like be that focused on dancing the whole time, which has actually been cool. It's been nice to sort of because I think after like with so much dancing, I think I started to feel like, okay, I got to do this to make sure everyone in the crowd is into it and is with us, and so on this tour it's been some like, okay, well, like let go of that a little bit, like let the people like take in the music how they want to take it in. Like you don't have to like show them you know, like you don't have to like just some of those shows are just like pouring sweat, you
just
know, it's
being
just like
your own hype man up there.
Totally. And I feel like with this new stuff, and it's like picking my moments where there are moments in the show where I love just like getting into it and dancing and stuff, and then there's other moments where it's like, okay, I'm focused way more on playing this guitar part right, and I think that's cool. It kind of adds like more of a dynamic to the show. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it pretty clear to you what sort of instrumentation you thought was going to serve these songs best when it came to putting together what the live show was going to look like for this new record and this tour that you're on right now?
I actually I worked with this guy, Grant Zubritsky, who he lives in Vancouver, but I basically teamed up with him, and we sort of like figured out, you know, how's it going to look on stage? What am I doing? What do I feel good performing? And yeah, we did like a week of rehearsals in Oakland, and I think through that just kind of trial and error what was going to work and what wasn't. And yeah, it's like I love playing guitar, and so it's like it's nice to do some of that in the show, but it's also really nice to not play guitar and to be able to like move around. And I think more about singing is I feel like that's been really fun. It's nice having the band and to sort of like carry that load too.
Yeah, I'm sure that helps in not making you feel like you just need to be hyping everyone up in the crowd the entire time.
Yeah, totally.
There's some other players up there to,
for sure,
just to take away some of the attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say? Like where did this Rivers record come from? Maybe emotionally from you, or where, like, what charged this thing?
Yeah. I mean, so we did a tour in 2022. It was like a summer tour.
Yeah,
maybe that was when I spoke to you last.
Yeah, because it was 2 years ago. You were like episode, I think I looked yesterday. You were episode 315, and we're on 425 now. So
damn.
A little over 2 years.
Oh,
ago,
nice. Oh, that's great.
We chatted. So
yeah. So like it was the end of that tour, and I had finished. I had put out Ritual like probably a couple months before, and it was July, and we finished the tour. I got home to Maine. My wife and I we were living in Maine at the time, which is where I'm from. And
you had just kind of like gotten back there, right?
Yeah, we went
like
back
during COVID.
Yeah, moved there in 2021, and we were there for 3 years, and we just moved to Berkeley actually. But yeah, we got back from that tour. It was like the day I got back, and my cousin died that day.
Jesus,
he was swimming, and he had a seizure and died while he was out there. And it was just like it was wild. It was literally the day we got back, and he was just like, he was such a fan of me, of my music, and he was autistic as well, and so I feel like music was like, I mean, it was just a huge thing to him in general.
Yeah.
But it was like a huge part of my connection to him, and like he, you know, was such a believer in me, like from like the early days, you know, of like songs I look back at and I'm like, oh God, it's like makes me cringe to listen to that stuff. And he was just like just leading the charge, you know, and just, you know, just like a beautiful soul. And so when he died, I was like, you know, it was like my whole family was just like devastated, and but it was also like really beautiful. Like we had just like a beautiful memorial for him, and I was like, okay, I want to, I want to make whatever I make next. I really want to make it for him. Like I want to make something. I think at the time I was like, I want to make an album about him. And I started to write those songs, and they just weren't good, It's just like I just couldn't really write them. I don't know. I think I started a bunch of things. I have so much stuff that I started on my computer that just like I just could not finish it. And so it's like I felt like I just kind of hit a wall. And so I kind of just like put that aside and was like, okay, I'm just gonna like make music and not think too hard about it. And it kind of goes back, I think, earlier to what I was saying just about like, I find it hard to like have an idea and be like, okay, I'm gonna write about this.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna, I feel like songs typically, for me at least, they just kind of come from a place like I don't even really know, like, and I think for me that's been like the most powerful thing about making music is like writing a song and like having it like make you cry, because you can't even believe that just came out of you, and you're just like, holy shit, I don't even know what that is. And so I feel like once I let go of this like need to make something for him, it's funny because like I was like making the album, and like the whole time I thought about him for sure. I really felt like he was so there through the process. And like my grandfather last year, he passed away, and he was also a big supporter. And he was 96 and like lived a great long full life. And but I played Ritual for him before I put it out, and I remember he was like we were actually sitting just like this, and we're just like in his living room. I'm just like playing the whole album.
Yeah.
And after each one, he's like, all right, nice. Yeah, keep going. He's like, and we get to the end and he's like, this is really good. And he's like, but I think it's going to be your next album. That really, it's like, it was so like perfect.
Yeah.
And, anyway, I felt him too very much in the process of making this album. And yeah, it was just kind of a lot of family. And my wife and I lived on this river in Brunswick, Maine, where we lived. And I just spent a lot of time just like, there's like a little like walking path along the river, and I would just basically make music and then like take long walks and think about it. And so yeah, and then this river goes to a river that goes by the town I grew up in. And it was it's also like just wild to be back in Maine, because I literally grew up there. So you're just like reconnecting with these old feelings, and just like the people you were, like
absolutely.
these chapters of your life, and just like smells and stuff when you go home, and you're just like, holy shit, and I think to live in LA for 7 years and to to be back in Maine, and like to go through fall and winter and spring, and just these seasons that you kind of, for me, I feel like I had just kind of forgotten some of those memories of being a kid in those times. So yeah, kind of, I feel like there was just like a lot there with sort of family and just kind of reconnecting.
Yeah, I think anytime you like move away from your hometown for that amount of time, when you go back, it can become this time capsule a bit.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man, sorry to hear about the losses you've experienced, especially your cousin like going in that way, but it does seem like you have found, you know, you had like this intentional thought to like try to like make a record for him.
Yeah.
And it was like just kind of letting go of that, and it feels like you still made the thing that like was in that spirit. And it's like
totally,
it's so strange because it is like you were saying, you know, that those songs that come to you where you don't really know where they came from, you know, that mystical element.
Totally.
And like there's so much like mystery like wrapped up in death, I think, too, you know, of like what happens and like all of these things. So it's like kind of beautiful that you were able to like find a way to capture the spirit, and like I would imagine that was helpful maybe in processing these losses.
I mean, totally. I feel like it made me feel closer to these people, you know, and it was it was really like a couple years like filled with death, really, but like I think just seeing like you said, the mystery and like there's so much beauty too with wrapped up in that, you know, despite, you know, also it's very sad and can be like extremely difficult too, but yeah, the music, I think making it like just felt like a way of connecting, like, you know, with my cousin and you know, my dad, my grandparents, like it's really felt good to make, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's powerful when you can like tap into a spirit that like makes you feel the presence of those people. You know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because of maybe what you were going through in the midst of like making this music, does it now that it's out in its completion, does it like feel like a different sort of release to you in any way?
Yeah, like different in what way? Like
I don't know. I don't know if vulnerable is the right word, but maybe like is there?
Yeah.
Does it feel like there's a different vulnerability to these tunes, even though because it's not like I don't find your music to be, you know, super on the nose as far as like being this emo thing or anything, but like, yeah, does it feel different in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, totally. I think I feel like releasing this music has made me. I've felt an obligation to sort of explain, like in a different way than I have in the past. I think in the past I'm like, yeah, just, you know, you write the song, you just put it out, and like just sort of let the music speak. Let the music tell the story. And I think with these songs, I think in general, I've just felt like, okay, I do feel ready, and I feel like I want to share more of myself.
Yeah.
And these songs, especially because, you know, they're about people I love, it's like I do feel more of a desire to share that stuff, which also I think, like you said, it feels more vulnerable, and but I'm like I'm here for it, you know. It's like, all right, cool, let's do it. I think it can like
light such a fire too when it's when you lose somebody that was such a champion of you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you were
totally.
talking about your cousin just like always rooting for you and like knowing that you're a great songwriter, or like
Yeah.
even your grandfather like telling you like, hey, it's gonna be the next record. It's like
Yeah.
it's like you're doing it for not just yourself at that point.
Yeah.
In some ways.
It totally. Yeah. Yeah. It kind of feels like honoring them in a lot of ways. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely feel that for sure.
Do you feel like you get to kind of immortalize them in some way, like through the music, and like you get to go out and like play these songs every night? And
yeah, I think like before we play the show, I think of like, I do think about them, and I think of my dad and my other grandparents too, who are huge supporters of me. And it's like I sort of picture them all.
yeah.
And it's been, it's beautiful. It's like feeling supported in that way. Yeah.
Well, aside from like what emotionally charged the record, which feels like captures the whole spirit of the thing, was there like a clearly a different approach for you in making a complete record this time opposed to Ritual?
Yeah, I mean, Ritual I feel like came together much more piecemealed. It was like it was a lot more it was just over time. It was like, I was still living in LA, and then we were moving across the country and moving to Maine. And so this, I guess this album felt much more like, okay, I'm making an album, and like, that's what I'm going to do. And when I made Ritual, I think there was a large chunk of time where I didn't know what the whole project, if it was, am I making an EP or what is this going to be?
Yeah.
And so, this just felt a lot more, just more thoughtful, I guess, in terms of the way of just approaching it as, okay, I'm making a full project here.
Yeah. From the jump.
Yeah.
You knew that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Did that make you think about just how you would make it cohesive, like differently, like what was maybe running through your mind as far as making a front to back record that was enjoyable to listen to?
Yeah. It's funny. It's like, I don't know. I finished the first version, and there were like a couple songs that I just cut because I just was like, there's something about these songs I can't. It's like I couldn't put my full finger on it, but I just didn't like them for some reason. And they just didn't feel like they fit. And so I mean, I think I just looked at the whole thing as more a feeling, like sort of listening through all these songs together, and do they feel right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think the song Fool I wrote, I mean, that song was written with this guy David Frank in 2019. We wrote that song, and then that song just sort of like sat on the shelf, and I produced it in Maine, but that song also just sort of felt more singer-songwritery than some of the other tunes, but I kind of liked that because I feel like for me it kind of spoke to my journey in making music.
Yeah, and being a
like,
singer-songwriter coming from that world.
Yeah, that was kind of like the very much like the beginning story, and so I feel like having some of that in there felt nice, like just beside some of the other tunes that were sort of less that.
Yeah. And what a cool way to like get to revisit that as maybe the songwriter where you've really found your voice in this Bay Ledges project, and all this experience and knowledge that you've acquired since your early singer-songwriter days.
That's true. Yeah, for sure. It's yeah, it's been a journey for sure.
But easy for you to like discern like where like what songs to cut. Like you could feel that like in that process, like this wasn't hitting. And
Yeah. I mean, it felt gradual, you know, it's like I felt I knew what the album was. And then I don't know. I mean, it was like kind of last minute. It's like I decided to cut. It was either one or two songs, I can't remember, but yeah, I just for some reason I was like, I don't know, for these songs just don't sit well, and I don't know. I think it's just a feeling, I guess. Yeah, you just kind of what feels right here. So.
Do you think that you could have made those same calls like 5 years ago? Or do you think that you would have just put everything on the record?
Yeah, I would have put everything on there. Yeah. And I think some of like the Bay Ledges thing for me has been like from the beginning was like, I like the idea of trimming the fat. Like what really needs to be here and what doesn't. And so, yeah, I think over time kind of getting better at, just like saying something, whether it's, you know, specifically saying something or just more of like a telling of a emotional story, I guess.
Yeah. I think maybe with that experience, like it becomes more clear that editing is important.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Right.
And that maybe like the first draft isn't always where it's at, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely feel that. Yeah, you really need time. I think that's the other thing is like, just like giving yourself time to really sit with it all, sit with the music. Cause you know, I mean, there's even, you know, I think it exists on a micro and macro level, but on the micro, it's like, you know, you make something one day and then you come back the next day and you're like, it's like, oh, I was so into this yesterday. And now this sounds like shit. and like, but then, you know, you come back 2 months later and you're like, oh, I actually do feel something here. But it's like only time can give you that. Like it's like the only thing.
Yeah.
And it kills me sometimes because it's like, you just want to like, you know, you just want to put stuff out and move on. And
it's very frustrating.
Yeah. Right.
At times, you know?
Yeah.
It's like playing the video game level over and over. And then you take like the break and then you go back to it a day later or an hour later and you just get it the first time.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just
exactly.
like, what?
Yeah.
So stupid. I feel like last time we talked just about the impact of environments and like how inspiring that can be. And obviously sounds like you experienced a lot of that going back to Maine. Yeah. How long have you been living back in California now?
We moved there in April.
Okay. So just a few months or so.
Yeah.
Do you already feel a shift like within yourself creatively or like what is coming out of you?
Yeah. I mean, I've been working on some music. It's hard to like, I feel like I've been so focused on the album and sort of like the tour prep and all that. So I haven't fully taken in what is. I've also just been like so slowly setting up my home studio.
Yeah.
In like, you know, it's just phases, very slow phases. So it's like, I'm just like, oh, how much can I just do with a microphone and guitar, you know, without having to set up the monitors and all that. But yeah, I mean, I love California. And yeah, I definitely think it influenced. I'm so affected by, you know, having time in the sun and just the weather's amazing and there's like thousands of different types of vegetation growing, you know, just on your block. It's like it's crazy, but yeah, I definitely I do feel the influence of, you know, wherever I am for sure. on the music. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna get that Bay Area fog record from Bay Ledges next coming
Yeah.
at you.
Yeah. That's right. I know. I love we moved to the Bay Area too. Now I'm like, oh man, it's like Bay Ledges, the Bay. It's like it's a little much, but
Well, you made a beautiful record, man. The Rivers record is so
Thanks.
good, and like I said, just cool to see the growth in the songwriting and your production skills. And
thank you.
yeah, I think it is very, very clear from the last project, you know, which also had great songs on it. But when I put this one on, I don't know, there's just like a different. I was just like, "Fuck yeah, Zach!"
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah. It sounded a
just-
little different to you. Did it feel?
I think it's just like I just think your songwriting too is just
Oh, sweet.
yeah.
Cool.
There's just so many like killer jams on this
Oh,
record. Just like
thanks,
front to
man.
back, it's such a enjoyable thing to listen to, and
Sweet.
I feel like so many of those tracks will make it into my DJ sets. You know,
nice. Oh,
like,
cool.
can fit
man.
into so many different settings.
Awesome.
you know.
Oh, thank you.
What do you feel like maybe you'll or maybe you already have like carry forward from the experience of like making this record maybe into future writing or just the way you're approaching
To
things?
the next. Man, what will I carry? I think, I mean, I feel like on the next one, it would be fun to do a little more collaboration. I think I like spent a lot of time just trying to like do my thing and really sort of hone that. And, yeah, I feel like it'd be fun to kind of try making some songs with some other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably the major thing. Yeah.
Do you feel like you're getting a lot out of the remixes that you've had the opportunity to do?
Oh,
like,
yeah,
does
yeah.
that like maybe help you break down songwriting and production in
Yeah.
different ways that you wouldn't have thought about when you get to
Yeah.
like really see the pieces
Totally.
that someone else has put together?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it helps me, if I hit a wall on a song, it's like, just trying to think about it like, okay, how would I approach this if I was remixing it, and just break it down and put it back together in a new way. Yeah, no, I've loved doing the remixes. It's so fun. And, I also realized too, I think earlier on when I would do it, it was like, oh, I'm going to see like how fucking crazy I can make this thing, not like in a shitty way, but just in a, definitely wanting it to sound good. But I think now too, I feel like I try to also just be pretty thoughtful of the artist too. And, just want to make something that they feel good about as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that Beacon School.
Oh,
track
cool. Yeah,
record.
with Ford.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that remix is very cool. that you
Thanks,
did.
man. Yeah, I love Ford and a Beacon School. Yeah, they're so good. So honestly, for that one, I was like, this already sounds so good.
Yeah.
So I was like, I guess I'll just like strip everything away and just do some like acoustic guitar stuff. But yeah, those guys are great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on, man. I appreciate you taking the time, especially while you're
Yeah.
out on tour. I know these, I don't know, they can just be such long days. So for you to be willing to give me some of your time today, I very much appreciate it.
Oh
And
man, thanks for having me.
just love the music you're making. And
Thanks, man. It
Yeah.
feels great in here. This is a very nice. This is just good for the chi. It
All right,
feels great
cool.
in here. Yeah, this is
Good.
great.
awesome. Yeah, it's great to have you here. It's really nice to have a space to like do this in properly now.
It's great.
I'll put all the links in the episode notes. You can get that Rivers record on vinyl now,
Yeah,
which is awesome. I'm definitely gonna have to add one of those to
for sure.
the collection here. All the links for Zach will be in the episode notes, so you can keep up with the Bay Ledges music. And Zach, we end every episode of the podcast with the guest saying the tagline for the show, which is "It's a program."
It's a program.
Yeah, it means nothing.
Wow,
It's just
wow.
the way my grandfather
Yeah,
says
yeah, totally.
the word program. It's the one time I'll ask you to look into this camera, and you can deliver it however you would like to.
Yeah, right there. Yeah. What do I just say? It's a program.
However
Yeah.
you'd like to do it.
This show is a program.
The show is a program. Yes. You mentioned Fool
Yeah.
earlier, and that was the track I was thinking we would play the episode
Cool.
out with.
Oh,
So
nice.
we're gonna play it out with Fool, and that's the Jelly Jams, and we will catch you on the flip side. Portland, Oregon, Portland, Maine,
Oh yeah.
Bay
Yeah,
Area,
Portland, man.
wherever you're listening from. And yeah, that's the thing. We did it. We did a podcast.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
Well, some things never last, and some kings fall too fast. At the knees of a queen, I am busted at the seams, and everyone here knows but me. Why can't I fly away like a bird out in the wind, like a hero in a cave? 'Cause I am grounded by you, not in a good way, in a way that makes me a